So I'm going to walk you through how I would go about setting up this project, and I'm not going to do this for every homework, but because these design elements that we've talked about, these main principles of design, are so fundamental to everything that we'll be doing through the semester, I wanted to kind of talk you through this process so that it really sinks in, and then we will actually look over your homework in class and I'll give you feedback on the things that you've done well and some of the things that you could improve on. So here I've started. I've picked my color scheme because I've already looked at our color meanings page and picked out the color that associates with the topic that I want, and I've loaded them as swatches. If you haven't watched the video how to load things as swatches, you'll want to go back and do that so you can get your colors set up. Now I have several documents open, and I know you're probably not going to be working with several documents, but if you are, they will show up here as tabs at the top of your screen, and you can click between these to go from one to the other. So you can see I've got kind of a process set up so I don't have to actually build this all in front of you, which would take a little while. So my first thing is I took the main idea of my word cloud and laid it out, and I did use both grouping and sort of that directional idea to put this together. So I would start looking at this up at the top left and work my way down to the bottom. And part of the reason why that would happen is the me word is the same height and heaviness as the word creative, even though it's a little bit shorter. And they're both bigger than all of these other words. So I can either look at this one or at that one, but because I'm American and I read from top to bottom, left to right, I'm going to look at this one first. So the idea starts here and works its way down here. So that's my first level of my visual hierarchy. Once I have that laid out, I would add my subdominant elements, and these would be maybe an interesting font that I think goes well with my first one but doesn't have as much visual weight. And you can see that this font is made up of fairly thin lines and it doesn't compete with these, and I've taken the ideas of things that I really like and kind of clustered them and grouped them close to these other words. Now my third step, I took my final and third font and used it both as a larger setting and a smaller setting to make a phrase that also adds an idea. So collects interesting useless trivia, and in parentheses, you never know, it might be handy someday. So through this quarter you'll probably, or semester, I'm sure you'll hear a few useless trivia things from me. Anyway, so I've finished laying these out and grouping them together, and you'll notice I don't have anything kind of hanging off or floating on its own. It's all part of the same cluster, and it has a bit of a flow. So when I start here, I'm going to read this first because it is the heaviest, most dominant element, and then I'm going to start probably looking at the chocolate chip cookie font and read those first because they're quite unique. It's different than a typical little sans serif font, which the rest of this is in. And then I would probably start up at the top and work down again. Alright, so I tend to lay these out in black and white first because as I'm making this, I'll move things around and resize them and try a bunch of different stuff. And sometimes it's easier to get your visual composition figured out in more basic black and white than throwing color in there to begin with. So I've got it set up. Now I'm going to add color. You'll notice in my layers panel I have a whole bunch of layers. Every single one of those sentences or words is a separate layer. Now how can I find these layers to add color to them? There's a couple ways, and I'll show you my favorites. You can always grab your text tool by hitting the T and actually clicking in a font and highlighting it and then choosing a color to change it to. But you'll notice it doesn't actually show up on your screen as that color because having it highlighted inverts it. So I'm going to hit enter. Now I can see it's blue, but there's an easier and better way to do this, especially because I think what I'll do is keep all of the same fonts the same color for the most part. So I actually want to undo that, so I'm going to hit Command Z to go back to the way it was, and I want to select everything that I want to be in this main color first. So I need these layers right here. Now I'm going to walk you through how to do this, and we'll do it a couple times. So what you need to do first is get your move tool by clicking on it or hitting the letter V for Victor. Now you're going to hold down Command and click on the actual area of one of the letters in a word, and you'll notice in my layers palette it went right there. So I can do that to go right to one word, and then I can grab my text tool, come up here to the text color box, and then choose whatever swatch I want it to be. And you'll notice it changed immediately and updated, and there's no inversion. I can even try a couple of different of these to see what I want. But I've kind of looked through these, and I think for right now I want this really dark one. And click OK. But if I did that for every single individual one, this would still take me quite a while. So I'm going to show you how to grab a whole bunch at once. Now you can come over and find them in your layers box, but as you know, we've got a whole bunch of layers. So we'll do this way as well. Actually, let's do the layer box first, just because I think I've shown you this, but I may not have, so we'll go over this anyway. I can see, because I made these all at once, that they're kind of by each other in my layers box. What I can do is click on one to make it active, and then hold down Command to click and add others. Now Command lets you click individual ones by themselves and doesn't select everything between them. If you click on one and hold down Shift, it will select everything between that and the next one you click. So I could pick them all that way. They're all picked. Now I can go to my type tool and grab my color box and change that to the color that I want it to be. Alright, now I want this one to be a different color, so I'm going to grab my move tool and hold down Command and click on it. You'll notice nothing changed because it's actually already selected. So anytime you want to actually get off any and all of these layers, you can hold Command down and click on the white background, and that will make it so that you don't have any layers active. Now I can Command click on the Me, and there it is. I can grab my text tool by hitting T and grab that, come up here and choose the color that I want that to be. Great. Alright, so I showed you here. Now I want to show you how to pick multiple layers out here in your document. So grab your move tool, and I'm going to click on this first one and then hold down Shift, because that will add to my selection, and click on the next one and the next one. And you can see over here that they are becoming active layers. And as long as I hold down Command and Shift, it's okay. But did you see what happened? I accidentally moved one, because we are using our move tool. It's something that might happen. So I can hit Command Z to undo that move. But sometimes that's a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Just looking out here, I can't actually tell if I have all of the words selected that I want. So one thing I can do is, once I've selected them, grab my move tool and sort of grab and jiggle so I can see what is selected. And it looks like I did get everything. And then just hit Command Z and they'll pop back to where they need to be. And that's how I would go about doing all of my words and adding color to them. The reason I've put this in the brighter pink is I wanted that to stand out the most. And once you're done adding color to your words, or even before, if you want, you're welcome to add color to the background, which you can do by clicking on it and grabbing your bucket tool. One thing to remember though is, if you've used all 5 of your colors out here in your words, if you use one of those same colors to fill in the background, you might actually make your words disappear. So for example, if I use this pink and filled it in, which I wouldn't use, that looks really fun, but now I can't see my big words. So if I've used all 5 of those, that's a good time to come into this color picker by clicking on the color chip and choosing either tint, which is adding white, a shade, which is adding black, or tone, which is kind of more over in the gray area. And we can just try this out a couple times and see if there's a happy medium. That is a gross color. Also, this is getting too girly. I'm going to go into the blues. Okay, now let's click back on that box one more time. I'm going to show you a little feature that I don't think I've shown you yet. So on my box, I actually have this area grayed out, but on yours, I'm going to bet it looks like this. Now, we've talked a little bit about what inks might be able to print. Not all colors can be mixed from CMYK, which are the inks that your printer uses. So if I come over here and I'm scooching around, you'll notice that occasionally by my color swatch, this little thing with the alarm pops up. That just means that whatever color I have selected is not likely to print like that it will actually print more like whatever this little square is underneath there. So to get the color that it's most likely to print like, I can click on that and it'll pop it down there. Now, this is only if you want to print this at any point. If really all you want to do is put it on the internet, this doesn't matter. So you can pick whatever colors you want after that point. Anyway, the feature that I had on there is just kind of a blocker, so it won't even let me see the colors that I can't use for CMYK because I'm used to it. But we won't really get there for a few more weeks, so it's alright to leave that off. So good luck. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. I will try and respond to them quickly, but I have great faith in you. I'm sure you can figure it all out.